Hello and welcome to another podcast from Odell Technology. Today we're joined by Dr. Maria Roldan, founder and CEO of Cranio.
I'm founder and CEO at Cranio, and my background is in biomedical engineering. I started to work in neuromonitoring since the very early stages of my career. That is the thing that I am most passionate about. And when I was finishing my bachelor's in biomedical engineering, developed my first device to treat hydrocephalus. And I saw that I didn't know how to actually test the system. So I got into a master's in epidemiology. And during the time, I learned how to create the clinical evidence that is required to demonstrate the efficacy and the safeness of a medical device. And later on, I got into my PhD in biomedical engineering at the City University of London. And during that time, I moved from this device for hydrocephalus that was implantable active class 3 to a non-invasive device. Again, same problematic that we will discuss today, but with a different solution, a class 2B system, non-invasive. And during the PhD, developed the science behind Cranio, and after some years, we spin off and created the company.
Can you tell me about the organization and what it does?
So at Cranio, we have developed this non-invasive and continuous system to detect high pressure inside the skull. And it is a small team of engineers, a professor, and a chief medical officer who is the head of neurosurgery at the Royal London Hospital. And this absolutely amazing team has created this technology. It is a simple but elegant system, just a patch that we place on the forehead of our patients to detect if the pressure is going up, which is kind of a big problem.
Okay, so what is intracranial hypertension and why is it a problem?
So intracranial hypertension occurs after a traumatic brain injury, stroke, and different conditions that affect 75 million people every year around the world, killing 20 million. That is like having 3 COVID pandemics per year. It's a huge problematic. And what occurs is that after trauma, for instance, there is swelling or bleeding within a cavity that is fixed, the skull. So the volume increases, therefore the pressure increases as well. And when that pressure, the intracranial pressure, goes above 20 millimeters of mercury, it is defined as intracranial hypertension and lead to damage in the brain and even death of the patient.
Okay, so what techniques are available for intracranial pressure monitoring currently?
Yes, so in the clinical guidelines, what we have is a neurological examination as the Glasgow Coma score, where they are going to check some signs of consciousness of these patients. If the signs show that the consciousness has been impaired, then the patient will receive a CT scan. But a CT scan is just a picture of what is happening at that moment on the patient's head. Only 2% of very severe cases receive an invasive bolt, which means that a neurosurgeon will drill the skull and place a sensor inside. And that is the only monitoring technique that allows us to do continuous monitoring of intracranial hypertension.
Okay, so it's a non-invasive technology. How does Cranio technology work?
So our device, just as a patch, it's a very simple, elegant solution where we place the patch, connected it to a monitor, and after a couple of minutes, we show a color-based indication if the pressure is up, allowing the clinicians to start treating the patient and escalate care on time, avoiding disability and even mortality. How does it work? We shine near-infrared light. So it goes through the skull, reaches the arteries on the surface of the brain, and provide us a pulsatile signal back. This pulsatile signal changes when the blood volume within the brain changes as well due to the pressure around the tissue. So we take advantage of that change and train our algorithms to detect high pressure inside the skull non-invasively and continuously.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the past work you've done and the future programs you've got aligned for the company.
Absolutely. So this started a couple of years ago at City University. There we developed the first version of the system, took it to the first in-human with 40 patients with traumatic brain injury, and we patented the technological concept. Then, from everything we learned in that first study, we created the second version of the system, which is the one I have here with me today. And this is the one we are using in our current clinical study in 3 of the 4 Mayo Trauma Centers in London. We are collecting data from 54 patients that allows us to train our algorithm. At the moment, our accuracy is already the same level than a CT scan, but the great advantage is that we can do it continuously. In the future, what we are looking at is to bring this product to our validation study to get all the evidence that is required for getting our regulatory approval and launch into the market by 2028. So we are working for it.
Okay, excellent. Well done. So you've talked about your collaborations in London. What about grants and funding? How is that working?
Absolutely. So we have been very lucky. We had grants from NIHR, several different opportunities, and from Innovate UK, which has allowed us to run these 2 trials and the future trial that we have planned for validation of our technology. But at the same time, we have had support from some angels and from a venture in the Netherlands. So we are supported by this. However, we have this round open at the moment. We are raising some additional funding to bring us to that validation study and to start creating the clinical evidence that is required to get our regulatory approval.
Okay, so obviously you're going to look for intensive care nurses and physicians who are prepared to trial Cranio and increase the knowledge base that you have. Is that correct?
Yes, so currently, as the gold standard, which is this invasive sensor, is exclusively used in ICUs, we are collecting all our data set in ICUs so we can compare with the gold standard. However, there is not where we are planning to deploy our system initially. And the main reason is that we see a lot of benefit on monitoring intracranial hypertension from early stages of trauma or risk of intracranial hypertension, right? So that means that we want to place this device initially in emergency rooms and monitoring wards where there is no available technology that can do continuous monitoring of this parameter. And one day, why not, we can take it as well outside the hospital. So we can provide monitoring to patients from the field, in pre-hospital care, even the military as a dual point technology for civilians and militaries in war zone, or one day, why not, having it as well at home in nursing homes. So if we have an old person that falls and hits some part of their body, they don't suffer the distress of being transferred to a hospital just to rule out a head injury. So these are just 2 cases to show up how our system could change lives. One of them is the case of a 25-year girl who got into the emergency room feeling confused, and clinicians thought that she was intoxicated. By the time that she got a CT scan and further investigation, it was too late, and she died. During those hours in the emergency room, there was no sufficient monitoring of this young girl to identify that it was not an intoxication, it was actually edema growing on inside her skull, leading to intracranial hypertension. We want to avoid that to happen again, just by placing a patch, keeping an eye on them continuously. And also we have this famous case from Michael Schumacher, who suffered a head injury while he was skiing, and he was transferred to a general hospital at the beginning. And by the time they knew he had a trauma, a head injury, and was taken into a neuro facility to have surgery, it was late. He was already in a coma. So knowing on time that there is intracranial hypertension could allow us to scale treatment on time and to transfer patients correctly to the places where they need to be.
Maria, that was excellent. Thank you very much for that contribution. I really wish you the very best of luck for the future. Is there anything you'd like to say to round off the conversation that you want to make to people?
I would love to hear from some clinicians that might be interested in this device that would like to engage with us and support us to get the evidence that we required or to understand more the usability of our system and how we can make our device better for the users. This here, you will find some of our partners, people that is working with us, institutions that are committed to support us to bring this to the patients and to improve their quality of life.
All right, Maria. Well, Dr. Maria Roldan, thank you very much for your time today. It's been fantastic talking to you. And I hope to talk to you again in 6 to 7 months' time when there are more studies and more real-world evidence going on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen.